Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Joe. Are you alive and awake today? I got a few that are alive and awake. Are you alive and awake today? All right. I got an email this week that I thought I might share with you guys. I thought it was pretty good. Got it from Jared. Thank you, Jared. Two men walk into a church with hoods and machine guns. They come in and they say, if you're going to profess Christ, we're going to shoot you. So if you want to live, you leave now. Well, the praise team was the first one out the right side door, quickly followed by the deacons and elders. Pretty soon, most of the congregation had left, and standing before the man was just the preacher. The man removed his hood and said, all right, preacher, we got rid of all the hypocrites. You can go ahead and start. But it had a very pointed question in it. It said, would you leave? Would you leave if somebody challenged your faith? And we can kind of laugh at that, but I don't know that it's so funny how simple it is for people to trash God and then turn around and wonder why the country's in shambles like it is. How funny is it that we believe what we see on the news, but we question what's in this book? How funny is it when everyone wants to go to heaven, provided they don't have to believe, think, say, or do anything that the Bible says? How funny is it when someone says, I can believe in God, but still follow Satan, who, by the way, believes in God. Keep that in mind. He doesn't deny Him. Last week, I feel like I owe you an apology, although I'm not going to apologize. Last week, I got on a little bit of a soapbox. It was a really big soapbox. But I got on a big soapbox, and I got up here and kind of ranted and raved and went off. But I think it was important, because I think it's important that we realize a few things that are happening around us. Like the video. I want us to realize, are we looking for a cruise ship? Are we looking to be part of a battleship? Do we think that being a Christian is Club Med? Are we coming here for Club Med? Or is this an emergency room? I think it's the latter, guys. This is an emergency room for sinners, not Club Med for Christians. I'm not here to cater to Christians that are already saved, hoping that you guys will find some sort of solace and some sort of peace in life. I hope you do find that. But part of my job as being a minister here is to help get you out of that chair and get you moving towards Jesus. And part of that, of what we're doing, is getting busy for God. Now, I know I can already hear Brandon over there groaning. Oh, here goes Robert again. He's going to yell at us and complain about everything. I'm not going to do that, Brandon. You're okay. Today, I want to share with you guys a way I was able to join a battleship this summer. I was able to get on the battleship and get out of the comfort zone of the cruise ship and share the Christ message with people. Today, I want to share with you guys what I did this summer for God, in the hopes that it will give you guys ideas of ways you might be able to share your message with God. See, I believe everyone here, including myself, wants to be a servant of God. But we struggle with knowing what to do and how to do it. So today I will show you one way that I talked to a few others in working for Christ and how it brought me joy. So that you guys might understand that you too should have joy in working for God. That no matter how tempting other things look in life, the work that we do for God is far superior, far greater, and will bring us much more joy. Because working for the Father is what we are ultimately designed to do. If you brought your Bibles, let's open up to Colossians. And we don't have this on the overhead because I didn't give them a heads up because I wanted to hear pages flipping or buttons being pushed. Colossians chapter 3. We'll start in verse 23. Like Jim said, he has this scripture that he says to himself every day, the little mantra that he says to himself every day. This one has served me for years. When I worked in construction, I had to remind myself of this every single day, or I could not make it through the day. I had so much anxiety, so much stress, so much hatred around me. I could not make it through unless I said this to myself every day. Colossians 3, verse 23. Whatever you do, work heartily, as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. That was my mantra for years, and I've wanted to share that with you guys. I believe that to be true. I believe that as Christians, we must be working towards God no matter what we do. Our job may be digging a ditch. It may be pumping a sewer. It may be sitting in a typing pool. It may be, oh wow, being an accountant. Boy, that would be horrible. But it may be something. It may be the guy at the grocery store bagging groceries. It may be a school teacher. It may be a housewife. It may be a house husband. Your job may be bringing up children. Your job may be driving children to school on a school bus. It doesn't matter what our job is, but we need to focus on Christ first. We do that job to serve God somehow. We have to put God in the front of that. Otherwise, our job becomes meaningless. It becomes hopeless. Well, this summer, I want to share with you guys the battleship that I got to be a part of. I, with 6 other people from Southeast Church and 3 people from Pueblo, got to go to the Ukraine and work in a camp. This camp was a camp for kids that were struggling with the disease or illness or bad immune systems because of fallout from Chernobyl. Most of us remember Chernobyl and what happened. Well, these kids were affected by Chernobyl. These weren't orphans, but some knew Christ and some didn't. But none of them knew that we were coming there to share Jesus with them. We came in and we shared a message with them. And that message was, love wins. We liked the message so much that that's what we named our team, Love Wins. And you'll see pictures of us wearing our purple shirts that say Love Wins. They liked it so much, they made us wear those shirts 3 or 4 times the 2 weeks that we were there. Those shirts were getting pretty nasty. We kept washing them out, but they were getting pretty ripe towards the end. They kept making us wear those shirts. They loved that message so much. I want to share with you guys some pictures. Go ahead and put the first picture up, if you would, of what we did when we were in the Ukraine. Okay, there's our team. That's everybody in our team except for one Julie. We had 3 Julies, so we thought we could use one to take the picture. Nobody would miss a 3rd Julie, so. But there's our team. Let's take a look at it. From left to right, you have Tom Pittman, who's the preacher down at Pueblo West, a good friend of mine. You have Gary Lorman, good friend of mine, sitting in the back. You have Gary and Uriah work together as a team. Uriah's not in the picture either. Uriah, why did you not make it in the picture? He was probably off doing teenage things. What? You were still on the bus. We probably left him there sleeping. We did that a lot. Next to me, between Gary and I, is Andre, who is Gary and Uriah's translator. Myself. Back down on the left here, this is Victoria. Keep that name in mind. Victoria. She was Tom's translator. You have tall Julie. We had to distinguish the Julie somehow. This was tall Julie here in the front in the white skirt. She was Carmela. Nope. Whose translator? Casey's translator. Casey with a C, translator. My wife, Sandra. Then you have Christy from Pueblo West. You have Middle Julie, or Dancing Julie as she was known. That was Sandra's translator. Then you have Carmela from Pueblo West. And then Misha, who is my translator in the back, in the purple shirt, in the Love Wins shirt. And then in the back you have Paige, who was our team leader. Valerie, who was her translator. Most of you guys know who Valerie is. Back in the front there in the middle, in the brown, you have Toma, who was Casey with a K's translator. And then you have Anya, who was Christy's translator. Not all of our translators were Christian. That's important to keep in mind. Some of them were starting that walk. Some of them have not started that walk. And some of them were Christians. Go ahead and go to the next picture. All right, there we are getting on the bullet train, which a lot of people said was cheating. However, that was still a 4.5-hour trip. and was well worth the extra money to take the bullet train than the 8-hour trip on the old train. Go to the next slide. This is what we did on the train, because we've been awake for a long time. We left here Friday at 5:50 p.m. We flew to Frankfurt, Germany, at which point we landed at like 11:30 a.m. in Frankfurt. And we had a 10-hour layover where we went around town and just saw Frankfurt. Then we got back on a plane and we flew to Kiev, where we landed at 2 in the morning, and we caught the train at 5 in the morning. So we were extremely tired, because sleeping in planes and trains is not very comfortable. However, Casey and Uriah found that if they put the tray down, they could make a pillow out of it, and they slept on the pillow. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This is backing up, I believe. This is a picture of us all in Frankfurt. We do not look like tourists, do we? Go ahead and go to the next one. I believe this is back in Frankfurt. Actually, this is in Frankfurt. I don't remember the name of the church. Beautiful church. They didn't even know there was a church there. It had been blown apart and gone for years, and it was after World War II, when they were removing the rubble, that they found the foundation of the church. They built this part back, or built this part new. We did climb to the top of that tower. It was a 200-foot elevation change, and it was 328 steps. Thank you. It was killer. It was this wide. Notice how wide I am. Notice how wide the steps were, and it was two-way traffic. It was quite a challenge, but we made it to the top and back down. And then Uriah wanted to go back up to the top, and we quickly told him no. So I'll go ahead and go to the next slide. Oh, this is Luigi. This is our friend in Frankfurt. His niece plays soccer professionally in Canada, so if any of you know her, please let us know, because he's convinced we do. Because America and Canada were real close. But we got to experience fine food while we were on this trip, and Luigi made these desserts for us himself, and he's quite a character. If you guys want to hear the stories of Luigi, talk to any of us. Gary and I have some really wild stories about Luigi. Go ahead to the next one, so I don't get fired. This was one of our joys. We got to ride around in an air-conditioned bus. I use that term air-conditioned loosely. I use the term bus loosely. We got to ride around like sardines with our luggage packed into this thing that sort of had an air conditioning, but they didn't like to turn it up because it was hard on the engine. And so we were mostly just sweating to death in there. So go ahead and go to the next one. While there in the Ukraine, we got to meet all sorts of people. We got to meet this gentleman here. This gentleman, we didn't get a picture of his face, but this is Alexander Pochenkov. And he's the director of the camps in the Ukraine. And he gave each one of us these little necklaces that have a little tag on it that was supposed to signify what kind of spirit of person we were, what kind of gift we had from the Holy Spirit. And he didn't know any of us, but he seemed to really know who we were. He said he was hoping that the Spirit led him to the right gift for each person. So we had our name on the front and the gift on the back. And mine was the erudite. However, when you say that with a very heavy Russian accent, it sounds like the arrogant, which was extremely funny to most of the American missionaries. However, the translators didn't get it. They go, it means the educated. And I said, that's not what they think. So, anyways, this was me getting my medal. Go ahead and go to the next one. And this was a day of joy. This was the day that we got to move as guys. Let me back up for a second. In the Ukraine, women move nothing. If they are caught carrying a purse and a guy is standing next to them, they will get chewed out. And the guy must carry the purse for them. I mean, they move nothing. So the guys got to move 2,000 pounds of Bibles 300 yards because, heaven forbid, we park anything close to the building we live in. So it was good exercise, right, Gary? I see Gary's got the boxes there. Of course, you don't see me in any of these pictures because I was kind of behind the scenes, of course. I carried my fair share. So anyways, we enlisted some of the little boys in the camp to help us move all these Bibles. My part was to store them in my room. I don't think we put a picture of that in there, though. So go ahead and go to the next slide. This is my class. This is one of my happiest days there. This is half of my class. I had a class of 50, and this is half of the 50 that showed up to get Bibles. At times I had 3, and then I would be teaching, and I'd look up for my material, and I'd have 25, and we would go on and do something else, and then I'd have 47, and then we'd go on and do something else, and we'd be back down to 32. So they were not required to come to our classes. It was volunteer. But at this point, we had 25. I got to hand out 25 Bibles and workbooks. That's me in the background getting a picture. I did have some good news right off the bat. The girl, the second person from the right, or would it be your right, right? Your right there, Melissa, was a Christian, baptized Christian, believed in Jesus Christ, and she was very helpful in sharing the message. Tanya, who's standing to my right there in the pink, also spoke Spanish, although we found out the Spanish that I know and she knows, not the same Spanish. Very, very different Spanishes. My counselor is right in the middle in the back in a yellow blouse. She's standing behind Max, who is a great kid. He followed me everywhere, mostly because he wanted my markers, which he ended up getting some, but no, he was a good kid and really asked lots of questions about the Bible and about God. I found out later on that most of my class knew some of the stories and knew who Jesus was, but they did not experience the love of Jesus that we were sharing. They'd never experienced that. They were taught it from a very dogmatic religious standpoint. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Can you go to the next slide? Thanks. This is, it looks like Sandra's class. Is that your class, Sandra? That is Sandra's class. That is her whole class. Sandra had about 25 in her class, and this little guy in the front in the orange shirt, Jim, he didn't even let her fill up her own water bottle at the Magic Fountain. He had to fill it up for her. That's what kind of chivalry they have over there. By the way, the Magic Water Fountain, if you ever go to Camp Yalinka, don't drink from the Magic Water Fountain. You have to take antibiotics when you get back. Ask me how I know. Who else do we have here, Sandra? I'm looking for your English teacher's son, but I don't see him there. Maybe in a different picture. Sandra was blessed. She had an English teacher from the town of Khorstan. And a lot of her kids came from the town of Khorstan. My kids came from like 4 or 5 different towns. But most of her kids came from Khorstan or near Kiev. And she had an English teacher that helped translate and really fell in love with Sandra and myself. And one of the biggest compliments we got while we were there as a couple was that we were a fine example for the children of what a married couple should look like. Go ahead and go to the next picture. We got into their hearts so much by just showing them Christian love that we got invited to participate with them in activities that they were doing. One of the activities that they were doing was this right here. This is Neptune Day. Now, in their practice, there's 3 Neptunes: Neptune of the sea, Neptune of the river, and Neptune of the lake. I don't know that they really believe that they're gods, but it makes for a really, really cool story. And they had a lot of fun. Every group of kids got to dress up and be painted a different way, representing some different species of animal or plant from the ocean, rivers, or seas. We had a piranha, which are here on the left. You notice the big mouth, the big red mouth with the teeth and the polka dots. They were piranha, and they had a little girl tied up that they were going to eat. She ends up getting away. It's a good story in the end. You see the girl, this was one of my favorites. I believe this was Kay Casey's group in the back in the bikini. She has on the little white dot on her belly. That was an eye. She was the eye of the octopus. Those guys were great. They hooked their arms and walked across, and they looked just like octopus. I mean, it looked really, really cool. My group was kelp, which are down here in the front, the yellow and pink. They were kelp or seaweed. There was another group, I believe it was Casey's group, that was the beavers. And that was really neat. They had gold, flashy tails, and they actually bit into trees and spit the lumber out. They took it literally. They're very creative, but they took some things very literally. Sandra's group was the parrotfish, and that was kind of neat. They played some whimsical music. They danced around and squirted water everywhere and blew bubbles. What else did we have? We had somebody's group was the pirate. Who was the pirates? Was that the beta? It might have been the beta group, which was an alternate group. Tom's group were the pirates, and according to the Neptunes, nobody invited the pirates. They just showed up. What else did we have? We had the crocodiles. Somebody's group was the crocodiles. That was Paige's group was the crocodiles. And they got caught in a net and then got away from the hunters. And then you had, what was the last group that I'm missing? There was one more group, wasn't there? Apologize, I don't see them up there now, and I don't remember. There was another, oh no, cancer, crabs. There was a group that was the crabs. They were the cancer, and they came out and danced, and they walked, on their hands and feet backwards, so they looked like crabs doing a crab walk. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This is Sandra's group again. You can tell who put the slides together. This is Sandra's group, and this is the last day. They all fell in love with Sandra so much that they didn't want her to go. She did get them to sign her T-shirt, and they wrote her very lovely messages. Great group of kids, and they really, really fell in love with Sandra and her translator. Next slide. This is my group. We were doing a lesson, and what was there that day. Very interesting lesson. I challenged them like I challenged you guys, just so you know I didn't take it easy on them just because they were kids. So they were ages 10 to 18. So what I had them do is they wrote on a piece of paper, and I probably should have brought this and had you guys do this today. I had them write on a piece of paper the name of somebody that they love very, very dearly. Whether it be a mom, a sibling, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is. Husband, wife, if they were married. I don't think any of them were married. But I had them write this name of somebody that they really, really loved on a piece of paper. And then I asked them, have any of you ever lied to this person or lied to anybody? I said, yeah. I said, then tear your paper in two and put it back together, two pieces, two halves. And I said, have you ever cheated at anything? Yeah, tear it in two. And I had them tear it up into little pieces. And I asked them, how did that make you feel to tear up this loved one's name? I said, they didn't like that. They didn't like that. They didn't understand why I had them do it. They said it hurt. So then I gave them tape and glue, and they tried to piece it all back together. And at the end of that exercise, I said, how hard was that to put it back together? They said it was really hard, really, really hard. And I said, that's what it's like when we betray Jesus. But the difference is Jesus can put us back together. He can piece it all back together because in the end, his love pieces everything back together, and he wins. Like I said, that goes with the theme of what we were trying to teach. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Yeah, I'm really ashamed that you guys don't ask for my autograph. I signed about 400 autographs while I was there. I'm extremely famous. They kept saying Robert De Niro. I don't know what that means, but I signed a lot of autographs. I don't know why. Some other people got to sign autographs too. They had me sign everything from, papers that we had done, craft projects, T-shirts, arms, like I'm signing forearms there. Some kids were shoulders. Some kids wanted it on their upper shoulder. I signed a lot of stuff. Apparently I was famous. I just had to write my name. So I was talented enough to do that. Go ahead and go to the next picture. This is Sandra's group again, making the God's eye. When we taught honesty, we were teaching them to be mindful that God is always, always watching. And so one of the crafts was to make a God's eye to help them remember that God is always watching, whether they're honest or not. The next slide. Here's Team Love Wins in our shirts. I believe this was soccer day. This is where my health started to go downhill because of allergies. I think the whole team is in that picture except for Gary. Where were you, Gary? Oh yeah, Tom's gone too. So you and Tom were doing laundry, I bet. That was laundry day too. So yeah, Tom and Gary were off talking. But that's most of the team sitting out waiting for the soccer day. They asked us to wear our Love Wins shirt, and they had us do a silly little dance. If you guys are all interested in seeing the silly little dance, I think Paige is putting it together for the talent show with the team. You are now. I got the song. I did my part. Oh, the family retreat. If you come up to the family retreat, maybe we will see it. It's to a song that apparently sounds Spanish, and I was asked by several people, what are they saying? I said, I have no idea. They're speaking Portuguese, which is completely different than Spanish. And the translators kept saying, no, it's Spanish. And I kept saying, no, it's Portuguese. They're from Brazil, and they do speak Portuguese. So I don't know what the song's about. We have really It's about some guy chasing a woman, I think. But anyways, there's a silly little dance that we had to do for the soccer tournament. I hope there's no pictures of that in here because it would be very, very embarrassing. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Ah, yes, at the soccer tournament, Camp Yalinka, which means fir tree, for those that are wondering, their colors were yellow. That was their team color. So we got painted with yellow, and Paige was blessed enough to get a crown. Apparently she had won some sort of Olympic challenge and was crowned as the queen for the day. But we were painted yellow for the soccer game. I want to remind you guys, like Larry was talking in class, sometimes we have to sacrifice. This isn't, I mean, we're showing you a lot of pictures of us smiling, but we smiled most of the time anyways. We had a lot of fun. But I want you guys to realize, I grew up in the desert Southwest, for those that don't know. It was, it's like 115, 120 degrees there and about 80% humidity. However, I've lived here for the last 2 years and I've really enjoyed how nice and cool it is. It is not cool in the Ukraine. It is extremely hot. There is no such thing as air conditioning in the camps. And it is about 92 degrees and about 80% or more humidity every single day. So there was a little bit of sacrifice going on. Also, my wife had to sleep like 3 buildings away from me. That was a sacrifice too. So we got every chance we spent time together. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, here we are at Svatogorsk. Did I say it right? Svatogorsk? I've been saying it wrong, so I'm working on that. The ladies had to sacrifice. They had to wear headscarves as and long skirts, and as guys had to sacrifice, we had to wear long pants. This is a monastery. If you see down here in the bottom, this is the monastery. To go into the grounds of the monastery, we had to be dressed appropriately. It was very interesting to see. This is a Greek/Russian/Ukrainian Orthodox Church, however you want to say it. But it's an Orthodox church, not to be confused with Catholicism. It's very different in a lot of ways. Very similar to our religion in a lot of ways. And you see the little buildings going up the hill up there. That is actually built on a rock. It's built into the side of a mountain, and it's caves, and we got to go through those caves. Very, very interesting how the monks hid out in the caves. Go ahead and go to the next picture. Here we are. This is the guys. We had to take separate pictures for whatever the reason. But this is the guys in front of the monastery. Go ahead and go to the next one. Now this is us up on top of a hill above the monastery, which was very, very interesting. They have this huge statue that stands up on top of this hill, and he must stand, 75, 90 feet in the air, and I forget what his name is. Does anybody remember his name? Artuk. Artuk is a guy that killed 300 monks. And they leave this statue above the monastery as a reminder of this guy that killed 300 monks. And I said, why wouldn't the monks have the statue torn down? And they said, no, they don't need it torn down. It's part of history. And they have a very rich culture where they remember things, even if they're bad things, they remember things. Up there on top of that hill, there was also memorials to the World War II and different people like that. Go ahead and go to the next one. Now here we are on Sunday morning in the church in Kharkov working. Tom was preaching, Larry was translating. Go ahead to the next slide. Then we put together a fun activity day for the kids, trying to share our experiences with them, and we put together an obstacle course. The next slide. Along with this, we were supposed to do a water balloon toss. You see how that worked out. They tried to hit the camera people with the water balloons, and it became a mad chaos of fighting over water balloons, but it was a lot of fun. Next slide. And here they're doing some of the obstacle course, holding a ball between their backs and between their heads and doing a relay race. Next slide. And here we're teaching the counselors. We got to become friends with the counselors, which was really, really big because that helped open the doors for the kids. And we were teaching them a good old American game called Spoons. Down here in the bottom right corner, this is Ola, was her name, right? Ola. I'm pretty sure her name was Ola. And Ivan. They told me Ivan, but Ivan? I don't know. They kept saying Ivan. But either way, Ivan's quite the character. He was about the only orphan that we did meet. He was a counselor. He'd been awarded by the state some very prestigious awards for working with kids. He did grow up in an orphanage. But we were trying to teach them spoons. If you guys want to hear the stories about spoons, they are hilarious. I just asked somebody about the stories about spoons. Go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, here we are getting to share in their culture and their experiences. We were treated to the treatment centers where they're treating these kids to help build their immune systems. This is an aromatherapy room, and even though it looks like Tom is really enjoying himself, he is not. It was extremely claustrophobic. Even though there was sunlight coming in, it still was pretty claustrophobic for Tom. And it was extremely, for as hot as it was outside, this room was about 20 degrees hotter and no circulation. The bottom right corner, Gary, Julie, and Valeri. Now, you notice how Valeri's pants are glowing? That was a different room. That was the salt cave, which had a black light in it and a disco ball. We weren't supposed to dance. There was some sort of whimsical music or something, I think, in the background, and we were supposed to inhale the salt for a certain amount of time. Go ahead, next slide. Here's Gary getting more treatments because Gary got sick. Notice the picture on the right. That is actually electroshock therapy. Ask Gary about that. He enjoyed that. Almost as much as he enjoyed the little quartz machine right there, which him and I both had to do. Heats up quartz and you snort it. So hopefully that really worked. I don't know. We may find out later on in life that that was not a good idea. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Here we are. They challenged us to a volleyball game. And although we lost, but we did have to have Ivan on our team. I never figured that out. It was U.S. against Ukraine, but it was U.S. and Ivan who was really helping them. But we got to play volleyball, and we made a good showing. We had a good fun on a lot of good times with them. Go ahead, next slide. The volleyball team's picture afterwards. Next slide. Now, here, this day, we were doing tie-dye. We had planned for 300 kids. Come to find out there was 380 kids. We brought 400 shirts. We ran out of shirts. So you guys do the math. I think there was more than 400 kids, or more than 400 people got shirts. We decided to tie these ahead of time. A lot of the people in the picture here are our translators and us. A few of them are the members of the Americans that are setting up the church in Kharkov. That's who's there, the missionaries that are in Kharkov. Next slide. Here we are, still prepping the tie-dye, and Uriah doing the tie-dye. Each kid was allowed to pick 2 colors. Blue and yellow seemed to be the most popular. Might have something to do with their country's flag. I'm not sure, but that seemed to be one of the popular combinations. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Actually, backing up to that, just so you guys know, the tie-dye was a lot of fun. We did I think, reach out to a lot of people, and they really enjoyed it. They loved the shirts. This is our train ride home, and we're not actually sleeping. We're all very, very sad that we're going home. And actually, we're sleeping because we got up at 4 o'clock in the morning to catch this train out of Kharkov and go home. And the train didn't even leave till like 8 o'clock in the morning. And so we could have slept in a little bit longer, but we were there on time waiting on the dock. Go ahead. Next slide. One more thing about the train. While you're traveling, if you're trying to sleep on the train, the conductor is told that there are Americans in the car sleeping. So he randomly yells out across the mic, "Okay!" We have no idea. I think he's saying okay, but it just wakes you up. That's all it does. And he does that at random intervals on the train ride. Now this is us getting to the airport, and we were very saddened to find out that our flight was canceled, and we would be staying in Kiev yet another day, is what we thought. However, we were happy because this is the first place that we got to that sold ice. And believe it or not, ice is very, very rare. That was the thing I was missing the most, was ice. And it had air conditioning, sort of. They always have air conditioning, sort of. They just don't believe in using it. Go ahead, next slide. This is back in Kiev. Gary and Uriah wearing Ukraine t-shirts. And we picked up, the funny thing about that is, Uriah, what size shirt do you wear? Uriah wears a medium. You guys know Uriah. That is a XXX that Uriah is wearing. They're not very big people. Gary's shirt was actually my shirt. I wear a XXX. I bought a quadruple X, and it still didn't fit. So Gary got it. They're very, very small people over there, apparently. And of course, you can't see this, but they are standing directly underneath the air conditioning vent in our apartment, which we were allowed to control the thermostat, so air conditioning worked in our apartment. Go ahead, next slide. This was the Sunday morning in Kiev before we left, or the day before we left to come home. We were doing a lesson. having our church service. Next slide. Now, I told you guys to remember Victoria. We're going to talk about Victoria a little bit more. This is actually a picture of us playing a game, and I was trying to figure out if she was lying to me or not. I suck at this game, but that's good because I'm a preacher. I shouldn't know if people are lying to me, and I shouldn't be good at lying. In Paige's defense, her and I lost this game almost every time. However, my wife won several times. I don't understand that. But just keep that slide up. You can go ahead and turn the lights back on. That's the end of the slideshow. The epilogue to the story, though, is the joy that we feel when we're planting seeds. We planted a lot of seeds when we were there. And I want you guys to realize that there's joy in everything that we do for Christ. Because every time we're working, we're trying to plant seeds. Sometimes we're not planting, but sometimes we're watering those seeds. We got to plant, myself and the team got to plant over 400 seeds in youth and adults while we were there. Some of them already knew who Christ was, but we were watering those seeds. One of the greatest compliments we got routinely from a lot of different people, even from children, was, "You have been a great example of who Jesus Christ is to us." I got that on my shirt. They signed my shirt, and a lot of them said, "You've been a great example to us of what the love of Jesus looks like." All we had to do was share the love of Jesus with them. It's not that hard. Now, the epilogue to this story is, I got a text from Paige last week after church that says, Victoria, this girl here who I had been studying with, got baptized last Sunday. Woo! We weren't only affecting the children, but we were affecting their parents, and we were affecting the translators that we were working with. They affected us, and we got to come back changed, willing to work, ready to work, understanding that this world we live in is all a mission. Not just the Ukraine is a mission, but Aurora is a mission as well. How awesome is it? How invigorating is it to know that we are part of something much, much bigger than ourselves? How awesome is that? To understand that we are a part of something that Satan himself cannot stop. He can try, but he won't win. He will not win. Because in the end, like our team name said, love wins. This may be a battleship that we're on, but I want you guys to realize that our cannons aren't filled with ammunition. They're filled with love. It may be an emergency room, a triage, but we don't have gauze. We have bandages of love that we're sharing. We have joy in our work for the Lord because we love Him and He first loved us. I don't apologize for last week's sermon, and if you didn't like it, I'm sorry. But I hope that got you to think that there is stuff that we need to be doing as Christians and things that we need to be trying to do in this community around us. We have a choice in this world, like we were talking about downstairs. We have choices that we can make. We can choose a cruise ship, or we can choose a battleship. I want you to know that there's true joy, true everlasting joy on the battleship. Don't fall in love with this temporary home. One more brief story before I leave. Yesterday, for those of you that didn't get to go, I got to go up to Nate and Candy's new home. It was beautiful. It was like 70 degrees, aspens and pines mixed all around us. It's a beautiful log home. He fed us some really good food. We had a great time. And I told Nate at one point, I said, "Man, you have a beautiful house." And he says, "Yes, I know, but it's not here." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "My beautiful home is laid up somewhere else. This is just a temporary resting place." Such the right attitude from our brother. Such the right attitude. He knows he lives in a beautiful place here on earth, but it is nothing compared to what we have promised to us in heaven. In the end, guys, love wins. We need to be sharing that message, the message that we shared in the Ukraine, that love wins. Because in this world, I think they've lost sight of the joy that there is. One thing our translators told us, one thing my translator told Sandra and I, as we walked through the town of Kharkov to go eat lunch after church, I said, "There's something about your culture where you don't whistle, right? And he said, yes, we believe that if you whistle, it will bring you bad luck and you will not get money. And he said, I guess that's not true because you Americans whistle all the time and you guys are rich. I laughed and Sandra asked him, why is it that most of the adults that we come across are not smiling? They don't make eye contact with you and they don't smile. And he says, I guess it's because we don't have anything to be happy about. Folks, we all have stuff to be happy about. But most of all, we get to be happy about the joy that God gives us routinely every day. The joy that comes from knowing that in the end, love wins.